The Origins of Totalitarianism by Hannah Arendt, first published in 1951, is a seminal work that provides a profound and insightful exploration of the historical and ideological conditions that led to the rise of totalitarian regimes in the 20th century. The book focuses on the development of totalitarianism, primarily exemplified by Nazi Germany and Stalinist Russia, as a novel and unprecedented form of government. Arendt's analysis spans history, politics, sociology, and philosophy, offering a detailed examination of the factors that converge to create totalitarian systems. This discussion explores Arendt's core arguments and the significance of her work. 1. Structure and scope. The book is divided into 3 parts: anti-Semitism, imperialism, and totalitarianism. Each section delves into specific historical and socio-political phenomena that contributed to the emergence of totalitarian regimes. Arendt's narrative weaves together the historical forces, ideological movements, and political structures that culminated in the creation of systems of total domination. 2. Anti-Semitism, the first prelude to totalitarianism. Arendt begins with a study of anti-Semitism, which she views as a key precursor to totalitarianism. She traces its roots in 19th century Europe, noting how Jews became scapegoats in societies undergoing rapid modernization and social dislocation. While anti-Semitism existed long before the 19th century, Arendt argues that it was transformed into a politically potent ideology in the context of modern nation-states. One of Arendt's key insights is her distinction between traditional religious anti-Judaism and modern racial anti-Semitism. The latter, she argues, became intertwined with the emergence of nationalism and capitalist economies, where Jews were perceived as symbols of financial and cultural instability. Arendt explores how pseudoscientific theories of race exacerbated hatred and justified exclusionary policies, culminating in the genocidal practices of the Holocaust. Number 3. Imperialism, the expansion of bureaucratic power. The second part of the book focuses on imperialism, particularly the expansion of European powers into Africa and Asia during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Arendt highlights how the mechanisms of imperial domination, such as bureaucracy, racism, and economic exploitation, created a template for the oppressive structures later employed by totalitarian regimes. Arendt identifies the phenomenon of administrative massacres in colonial territories as a precursor to the mass atrocities of the 20th century. She argues that the dehumanization and subjugation of colonized peoples laid the groundwork for similar practices to be directed at European populations under totalitarian regimes. Moreover, the imperial mindset fostered a belief in unlimited power, which undermined traditional limits on government authority. Another critical concept introduced in this section is statelessness. Arendt examines how the collapse of empires after World War I left millions of people without a political home, rendering them vulnerable to persecution. Statelessness, she argues, exposed the fragility of human rights when detached from citizenship and a functioning legal framework. Number 4. Totalitarianism, a novel form of government. The final and most crucial part of the book delves into totalitarianism itself. Arendt distinguishes totalitarianism from other forms of authoritarianism or dictatorship, emphasizing its unique characteristics: total domination, the use of ideology as a guiding principle, and the transformation of society into a mass of atomized individuals. Total domination. Arendt argues that totalitarian regimes aim not merely to suppress opposition, but to control every aspect of human life, from public behavior to private thought. This ambition for total domination necessitates the destruction of individuality, spontaneity, and plurality, elements Arendt considers essential to human freedom. The role of ideology. Central to totalitarianism is the use of ideology to create an all-encompassing Here's the copied text. Total domination. Arendt argues that totalitarian regimes aim not merely to suppress opposition, but to control every aspect of human life, from public behavior to private thought. This ambition for total domination necessitates the destruction of individuality, spontaneity, and plurality, elements Arendt considers essential to human freedom. The role of ideology. Central to totalitarianism is the use of ideology to create an all-encompassing framework for interpreting reality. Arendt examines how ideologies like racial purity in Nazism or historical materialism in Stalinism served as tools to justify the regime's actions. These ideologies provided a sense of order and inevitability, allowing individuals to abdicate moral responsibility in favor of blind adherence to historical necessity. The atomization of society. Arendt describes how totalitarian regimes deliberately destroy traditional social structures, such as family, community, and civil associations, to isolate individuals and render them more susceptible to control. This atomization leads to a loss of shared reality and collective solidarity, leaving people disconnected and unable to resist. 5. Mechanisms of totalitarian control. Arendt identifies several mechanisms through which totalitarian regimes maintain power. Propaganda. Used to manipulate and reshape reality, propaganda plays a central role in creating an alternate version of the world that aligns with the regime's ideology. It suppresses dissent by discrediting truth itself. Terror. Arendt emphasizes the centrality of terror in totalitarian systems, describing it as a tool to enforce obedience and eliminate potential resistance. Unlike conventional repression, terror is indiscriminate and aims to create a climate of constant fear. The concentration camp system. One of Arendt's most harrowing analyses is of concentration camps, which she sees as laboratories for total domination. In these camps, individuals are reduced to bare life, stripped of their rights, identity, and humanity. Number 6, the human condition and the loss of reality. Arendt's philosophical reflections extend beyond the specifics of totalitarian regimes to address broader questions about human nature, society, and politics. She explores how the loss of shared reality, a phenomenon exacerbated by propaganda and ideological fanaticism, undermines the foundations of democratic governance. When facts become malleable and truth is subordinated to ideology, the ability of individuals to think critically and act collectively is eroded. 7. Relevance to contemporary politics. Although Arendt wrote The Origins of Totalitarianism in the Aftermath of World War II, her analysis remains profoundly relevant in understanding contemporary political phenomena. The rise of populism, the spread of disinformation, and the erosion of democratic norms in many parts of the world echo the dynamics Arendt described. For example, Arendt's insights into the role of propaganda and the manipulation of truth can be applied to the proliferation of fake news and conspiracy theories in the digital age. Similarly, her analysis of statelessness and the precariousness of human rights resonates with ongoing refugee crises and the marginalization of vulnerable populations. Number 8. Criticisms and legacy. Despite its acclaim, Arendt's work has been subject to criticism. Some historians argue that her interpretation of imperialism oversimplifies complex historical processes, while others question her portrayal of anti-Semitism as a primary driver of totalitarianism. Additionally, her emphasis on the uniqueness of totalitarianism has sparked debates about whether her framework is too rigid to accommodate other forms of authoritarianism. Nevertheless, The Origins of Totalitarianism remains a cornerstone of political thought. Arendt's ability to synthesize historical events with philosophical insights has made the book a vital resource for scholars, policymakers, and citizens seeking to understand the dynamics of power and the fragility of democratic institutions. Hannah Arendt's The Origins of Totalitarianism is an essential exploration of the historical, ideological, and psychological factors that gave rise to totalitarian regimes. By dissecting the mechanisms of domination and the conditions that enable them, Arendt offers not only a powerful critique of 20th century totalitarianism, but also a timeless warning about the vulnerabilities of human societies. Her work challenges readers to remain vigilant in defending pluralism, truth, and the dignity of the individual against the forces of oppression and ideological absolutism.